Good morning, everyone. Pete here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another edition of our show. Today we've got a special one. This is a request show. All right. This has actually been asked for by quite a few of you who want to know. It's like, Pete, what were the first 10 albums that you ever bought when you were a kid? Those first 10 that you bought maybe with your own money or maybe with a little help from mom or dad or whatever. But the first 10 albums you acquired, right? So I had to think about that because, we're going back a long time ago. I'm 54, so we're talking, late 1970s, right? Is when I first started, mid 70s is when I first started buying records, okay, or saving those 50 cents, those quarters and what have you, and the stray dollar bills that I would get from time to time as an allowance, kind of putting them together and trying to buy some music because, at the time, what did I spend my money on? Comic books and baseball cards. That's all I spent my money on back in the day, prior to getting into music. So at that point, all of a sudden now you have to throw the occasional LP into the kind of equation, right? And back then, a new album, could be anywhere from, so we're talking 75, 76, 77, $4.99 to $6.99, $7.99, double out maybe a little bit more. But I can recall those first bunch of albums that I bought. I had to save up for a little bit for them, but then, eventually, man, it's just like anything else, and especially with me, once I started, forget it. It was just like no stopping me. So I put together, and again, these are all on CD now. I'm talking about albums, so back in the day I had LPs, but of course I'm going to show you the actual CDs here, because that's what I've been collecting. As you can see behind me, I no longer have all my old LPs. I have them all on CD. So the first album I ever bought, and again, you probably heard this story. If you've been following the channel, you've heard this story from me before. But my parents were good friends with a family also from the same town, Goshen, New York. And there was a couple, and they were a little bit older than my parents, about maybe 10 years older or something like that. And they got very friendly with them. And one night they invited us over to their house for dinner. So mom and dad brought the kids. I was 9 years old at the time. And, or maybe 10, I don't remember. It was either in 75 or 76. I forget. My brother is 4 years younger. But their friend's youngest daughter was actually, she was probably like 5 or 6 years older than me, all right, thereabouts. And so we go over for dinner, we have dinner, and then the parents, of course, are hanging out, talking, chit-chatting, whatever, and, they kind of told the kids to go off and do something. So we go into their daughter's room, my brother and I, and she's like, you got to hear this new record that I just bought by this cool new band. And I was like, to me, I was like, I liked, AM radio stuff, but I wasn't really a band guy yet, right? So she puts on this record, and it was heavy. It was kind of dark, and at the time I thought it was kind of evil sounding. And then she let me look at the LP cover, and of course, it was this, Kiss Alive. And I was just like, wow, this is the coolest thing ever. And I'm looking at the opening up the gatefold and looking at all the photographs. And, I was like, holy smokes, look at these guys. And of course, I love superheroes and monsters. So seeing these guys in these outlandish costumes and the makeup, I was like all in. And the music was heavy. It was different than the stuff that I was hearing on AM radio. And I was like, wow, this is great. So, of course, it's all I could think about. It's like, all right, I have a couple bucks, whatever, saved up for my allowance. I'm like, I got to go get a Kiss record. I wanted to get this. But the one I actually bought first, the first album I actually ever bought was Destroyer because it had just come out. So, of course, we're talking here. So this is probably... So Destroyer was 76. This came out in 75. So this was the first one I bought. So the reason why I bought this, because this had just come out. So, of course, you go to the store, and I'm thinking I'm going to buy this, and I see this, and I'm like, ooh, and the cover is great, and I was like, ooh. So I wound up getting this first. So Kiss Destroyer was my first LP purchase, all right? Of course, shortly thereafter, I got this. In fact, I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think Mom and Dad helped out a little bit so I can get a hold of that. They hated this band, but they wanted, of course, gotta help the oldest son out a little bit. So these were the first two records I ever had, all right? I'm going to include these all in one here because not long afterwards, I also picked up, a lot of the Kiss stuff right around the time. So about a year later, what I was getting is Rock and Roll Over, Love Gun. Remember the double platinum that came out? So I was grabbing anything I could from Kiss, and double platinum was actually the two LP set that had most of the stuff from the first 3 albums, right? But yeah, I was just gobbling up anything I could with Kiss with whatever money I had. So I just wanted to kind of do the little Kiss story first because this is the first, and I was obviously getting most of their stuff. But yeah, these are the first 2. All right, this will be kind of like my number 1 because I bought them almost around the same time. So great songs on here, right? Jesus, I remember I was all in on God of Thunder, Detroit Rock City. Shout It Out Loud. I even dug Beth for a while there. Of course, it was a big hit. Then you got Deuce and Strutter, Got to Choose, Hotter Than Hell, Firehouse, Come On and Love Me, Parasite, She, Watching You, 100,000 Years, Black Diamond, on and on and on. So many great songs on there. And, I still love those albums, especially Kiss Alive, man. I still dig it. So the second album I ever bought, all right, and again, I think at a very early age, I was enraptured by live albums because of Kiss Alive. Whatever you think about, whether it's live or not, doesn't really matter. Live album, all right? And then I started, and I don't remember exactly what grabbed me about, and again, you got to remember the 70s were a little different because a lot of us would go, and many of you I'm sure will remember, you go and you bought records based on the album covers, right? And growing up as a little kid, my father was a big Beatles fan. And I have to say I was not really into the Beatles then, but I always liked the voice of Paul McCartney. So I happened to see this, and I believe it was Record World. No, I don't know where I saw it, but my father actually picked it up for me at J&R Music World in New York City because he worked in the city. But I actually saw it in another store, but he said, I can probably get them cheaper for you in the city. So a lot of times I would see things in Orange County in various record shops and department stores, and he would then go and buy it for me in New York City and bring it home. So I told him to get this. Paul McCartney Wings Over America. This was the first Wings purchase I ever made. Triple album set, right? I could not stop listening. As much as I was into Kiss, man, I was this threw me for a loop. So much music, I recognized some of the Beatles songs, and of course, I recognized some of the Wings classics because, of course, you remember this came out after a lot of Red Rose Speedway and Venus and Mars, okay, and Speed of Sound. Okay, all those albums had come out prior to this. So I remember hearing a lot of those songs on the radio and really digging them, right? So, of course, after I got this, which had all that stuff, Band on the Run too, of course, I then went out shortly thereafter and put my measly money together, what little money I had to go have Dad get cheap copies of me for, Band on the Run, Speed of Sound, Venus and Mars, Red Rose Speedway, all that kind of stuff. So very quickly I started accumulating the Wings catalog, right? So, there you have it. And that was, of course, in 1976. Next up, 1976, Hotel California. Yeah, I was a big Eagles fan. Still like them, right? Still like them. But, and again, what prompted me to go buy this? I don't remember. My guess is hearing some stuff on the radio, okay? And just, of course, this was like all the rage at the time. So, of course, gotta jump on the bandwagon, right? Everybody else is listening to it. I got to. And you got the creepy back cover, right? Hotel California, Life in the Fast Lane, all those great songs. And, shortly thereafter, I went out and bought One of These Nights. I bought On the Border, Desperado, and then when it came out, I bought The Long Run. And I remember, if I remember correctly, I had Dad pick up The Long Run for me at J&R Music World the day it came out. Because back then you had to go buy newspaper ads and all that kind of stuff, and maybe you'd hear a commercial on the radio or see something on TV, right? So I was like, oh, that's coming out. So I actually had Dad go get that for me like that day it came out at J&R Music. So I remember him coming home with The Long Run. I was like, oh, very cool. But yeah, Hotel California was the first Eagles. All right, next up, got this when it first came out too. Boston, self-titled. Man, did I play this to death. Still love it. Yeah, this is one of those really, really, really mega popular albums that we have all heard a lot in our lives that I can still honestly say if I could put this on any day of the week and I'm not tired of any song on it. I can't say that with a lot of other albums of that stature, you know. But this one, man, to me, this just is such a groundbreaking album. Still sounds fresh, and again, most of the songs, you know, we've heard a million times, but they're still great, you know. Christ, More Than a Feeling, Peace of Mind, Foreplay, Long Time, still kills me every time, you know. Smoking, Hitch a Ride, Rock and Roll Band, Something About You, great song. Let Me Take You Home Tonight, the whole album, top to bottom, just absolute perfection. What else? Right around that same time period, I was just, you know, getting all this stuff. These are all really popular albums. So Steve Miller Band, Book of Dreams, also from 1977. So I remember, you know, Jet Airliner was a hit, obviously, at the time. I remember hearing that. Also, you know, grooving to Fly Like an Eagle and stuff. And I said, you know what? I got to go out and get me some Steve Miller Band. And I went to the store and saw that album cover. And that is a great album cover. And bought this, and man, just again another album that I just played to death. You know, Wintertime, very cool song. Swingtown, you know, Jungle Love. Of course, I was, because of my Kiss association, I was really starting to gravitate towards the harder rockers on a lot of these albums, right? So you know, Sacrifice, The Stake, good bluesy tune. I love the use of the synthesizers on this album. I became really, I love the rockers and the more radio hits, but I love the use of synths on this album. And to me, it was kind of like unlike anything I had heard up to that time. Even though this is like not a prog rock album or anything like that, but there's very cool use of synths on this album, which I think opened the doors for me for other stuff, namely this. Out of the Blue by the Electric Light Orchestra, all right, also 1977. This started to get, you know, with a little intro from the Steve Miller Band, I think that I was able to now expand my horizons a bit to music like this, which is very keyboard and string and orchestration dominated, right? And again, double album, full, came with a poster, and, you know, I remember sitting there pouring over the lyrics and all the instruments that were played on. You know, I remember like being really fascinated with the tremendous list of different kinds of keyboards and things that Richard Tandy used on this album, all the different synths and pianos and everything that he used. I mean, he used everything but the kitchen sink on this album, and just loving the lush sounds, and, you know, so many great songs, so many anthems. Turn to Stone, Sweet Talking Woman, you know, Night in the City, Stepping Out, Standing in the Rain, Big Wheels Turning, Baby I Know, Mr. Blue Sky, you know, The Whale. I mean, it's just Sweet as a Night. So many great songs. I still love this album to death. Played it so much. All right. You know, this was a huge album for me. Bad Outta Hell by Meatloaf. All right, also for 1977. So here, you know, I'm 11 years old now, and I am just ingesting all of this really, you know, kind of popular, great rock music of all different styles and flavors, and this was so addicting, this album. You know, I knew nothing about Meatloaf, the guy, right? I just know that the album cover was cool, everybody was listening to it, the songs were all over the radio, and the music was like bigger than life. You know, and then I found out this guy who's playing guitar. My God, this guy is sizzling. Todd Rundgren, right? So many great, I mean, the title track's so great, and even the ballads are great on this album, you know? For crying out loud, just awesome. 2 out of 3 ain't bad. All revved up and No Place to Go. Kick-ass rock and roll track. Heaven Can Wait. Took the words right out of my mouth. I mean, I knew all the lyrics to all the songs. You know, I could sing them all. 2 out of 3 ain't bad. Paradise by the Dashboard Light. I mean, top to bottom. Now it's like, you know, this is, again, we talked before about the Boston album, how that's an album that I can still listen to today, and I'm not tired of anything on it. I don't really listen to this much anymore. I think this got severe burnout with me. It's still fantastic. It's still great. Don't get me wrong. And the title track I still dig a lot. But, you know, if I never hear Paradise by the Dashboard Light again, I'm fine. The rest of it, I can listen to most of it, but I don't. All right. Because it's just, you know, and then plus my wife, who when she was growing up never got into this, and she started getting into this when we first met 20 some odd years ago. And so she, for the longest time, like the first, you know, 10 years of our relationship, she listened to this all the time. And I was like, oh my God, because I already heard it so much over the years, right? But it's cool that she did. All right. Also, from 1977, Point of No Return. I have to thank my cousins, Ann and Linda, for getting me into these guys. They were actually listening to them on the Left Overture album, and I remember going to Long Island to visit them and their family, my aunt and uncle and all of my cousins, and they were playing Left Overture, and I was like, ooh, that's pretty good, you know? And then, of course, I went out to go buy some Kansas, and this was had just come out, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to get that. I got Left Overture shortly thereafter. But Dynamite stuff, again, very different. It's kind of rocking, but, you know, the term progressive rock back then meant absolutely nothing to me. But I'm like noticing all the violin and cool keyboards and synthesizers, Hammond organ, you know, Paradox, The Spider, man, Closet Chronicles, which is one of my loved it from the first moment I heard it. So many great songs on here, and it just absolutely captivated me as a 11-year-old kid. And of course, also thanks to my cousins, they were really into Styx, and my first purchase was Pieces of Eight. Shortly thereafter, got the Grand Illusion, and before you know it, you know, just buying up anything I could from these guys. And I always gravitated towards the heavy rockers. So, you know, Queen of Spades, I absolutely loved. Great White Hope, Lord of the Ring, you know, of course, Renegade, Blue Collar Man, just a great album I was just totally into it. Also, that same year, I did a lot of buying in '77. That was, you know, in addition to the Kiss stuff. I didn't, you know, I've already talked about the Kiss records, but Genesis Seconds Out. Yes, this was my first Genesis purchase, believe it or not. This is the first, you know what? And again, you can see the seeds of what things I've talked about so many times on this channel over the years. Live albums just absolutely grabbed me. And I remember, and I still remember the day, in Record World, in Orange Plaza Mall, Middletown, New York, going through the bins and seeing this bin for a band called Genesis. Never listened to them. Had no idea what they were about. And I saw this LP, you know, big LP with a live concert shot on the front, right, with the lights and the smoke and all that kind of stuff. And because like, oh, does that guy, does he play? What? He's got a cool guitar there, all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, you know, it just looked cool. And I'm like looking at the song track list. I'm like, I don't know any of this stuff, but you know what? I'm going to take a chance on this, and I did, and I loved it. And the next thing I bought from them was Duke when that came out. And then, of course, I bought, and then there were three. And then I bought this very cool kind of like compilation from Charisma Records that had a lot of the classic tracks from the first couple albums on there, the Peter Gabriel stuff. And I bought that like in the very early 80s. And that really started getting me into the really early stuff. And then, of course, I went out and bought, you know, Foxtrot and Nursery Crime and The Lamb and all that kind of stuff. But this is the first Genesis I got, 1977. All right. Wanted to throw one more at you. So, again, another album that everybody had to have when it came out. This was all the rage, and again, a band that made a lot of sense for me because they were very upbeat and kind of fun. And you know, being a Kiss fan, I was like, oh, you know what? It just kind of makes sense. Cheap Trick live at Budokan. This is 1978, so this is going to be the end of our little show here. 1978, so 12 years old. Of course, this is the deluxe CD with all the extra stuff on it. But I remember just, you know, those two songs were all over the radio, and the rest of it just kick ass, you know, Ain't That a Shame, and, you know, all this fun stuff. And I remember a good friend of mine and my brother's, he's the one who, like, really said, oh, you got to get that Cheap Trick, it's awesome. And we would all get together and listen to this album over and over and over again, and just really, really fun stuff. And, yeah, there you have it. So there are my first 10 album purchases. All right, first 10 albums I got as a kid, and you know, it's safe to say for them, pretty much all that stuff I still listen to this day. Still love them all those bands mean a lot to me, and you know, why not? It's great music, it's timeless music. So you know, could have bought anything, but that's what I gravitated towards. And you know, shortly thereafter that, so now we're going to 1970. By 1979 I'm spending all my money on music. I stopped collecting comics for the most part, or close to it. I'm just putting everything in something. All of a sudden, you know, I discover Black Sabbath. I'm buying Sabbath stuff. I'm buying Deep Purple stuff. I'm buying Zeppelin albums. Okay, you know, Scorpions not long after, Judas Priest, Iron Maiden, all that kind of stuff. And you know, Yes, got into Yes right with the Drama album. Just started, you know, expanding, and just all these groups, Rainbow. right? You name it. All right, I just couldn't get enough. Couldn't get enough. And here we are. Right. So thanks for joining on this special show, looking at my first 10 album acquisitions. Visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, of course, we're here on Mighty YouTube all the damn time. What's coming up, Pete, you might be asking. All right. Well, hopefully later today, I'm going to sort of rank the albums by the Scorpions. Except basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you my top 10. They have way too many albums. I don't have a lot of them after the mid-80s or any, I don't think. There's like a certain point where I just stopped collecting Scorpions albums, but I really love those old ones. And so I'm going to give you my top 10 Scorpion albums. All right, so that's coming up today. This weekend, some more ranking the album shows. Maybe we got my buddy Jack Toledano, who did who guested on my top 10 Kiss song show back, a year ago. Thereabouts. He's going to join me via Skype this weekend. We are going to rank our 10 favorite songs by Germany's great heavy metal band Accept. Got a lot of people asking for Accept, so we're going to do Accept top 10 songs this weekend. In addition, we're going to have the debut of The Monster's Den, my new weekly show where I'm going to be doing a monster / horror, slasher, sci-fi, fantasy film review show. So it's basically going to be stuff that I love that's in my collection. It'll give me a chance to talk about that stuff because I'm a big monster and horror fan. So I've been wanting to do something with that for a long time. So I'm going to do a weekly show where I'm going to talk about and review a film from my collection that I love quite a bit, get some discussion going. We're probably looking at a 10-minute video each time. We'll see how it goes. And for all of you who have proclaim that you're totally into that, you can't wait for it, it's coming this weekend. So haven't quite figured out the film yet. I think I have an idea. I got like one or two. I have two that I'm kind of going to focus on first. Just got to pick one of them. So we'll see how it goes. We're probably going to start way back first, just so you know. So you'll have to wait and see, right? So again, visit us on the web. Don't forget to do that as well, www.seatranquility.org. And we'll see you later on for some Scorpions, right? And over the weekend with Accept, Monsters, and all sorts of other stuff, right? So take care, guys. Be good. Bye-bye.